Hi Internet, my name is Abby and this channel is all about astronomy. So planispheres are a very simple, basic, easy to use tool that act as a map for astronomers to navigate the night sky. All you have to do is set it to your correct date and time and it'll tell you what constellations are visible to you and their relative orientation, so it's really easy to find what you're looking for. This is my Planisphere. I got it off of Amazon. It was about $12. There are a ton of different companies that make Planispheres and they all work about the same way, so whatever one you get it works. This one in particular is from the David Chandler company. I'll have it linked below if you're interested, but like I said, whichever one you decide to get I think will work the same. They range in price between $10 and $20, so it's relatively inexpensive compared to some other astronomical tools that you can purchase. The one that I have is 30 to 40 degrees in latitude. So before you get one of your own, you'll just want to go on Google and look up what latitude you're at and make sure that you get one with a range that covers your particular location. If you're in the United States, like me, 30 to 40 degrees covers about 50% of the United States, and then if you're a little bit more north, you might want to get the 40 to 50 degree one. I really like planispheres, especially as a beginner astronomer. I use it a lot to get better at identifying the common constellations up in the night sky. It's really easy to use and you don't need any special equipment to use it. So like you don't need a telescope or fancy binoculars because pretty much everything marked on here you can see with the naked eye, especially if you have really dark skies. If you have some light pollution, maybe not everything, but most things you should be able to see and find on here. So now let's talk about how to actually use one of these things. Pretty much all planispheres are built the same and come with the same parts, so these instructions will be applicable no matter which one you have, even if you don't have the same one that I do. But you should see two outer layers and a rotating inner layer disc. The outer layers will have tick marks denoting different times throughout the day and a viewing window. And then your inner disc should have tick marks around the outside denoting different days within the year and the actual map of the stars themselves in the center. So all you have to do to use this is rotate your inner disc until your current date matches up with the current time. And then all you have to do is look through your viewing window and you should be able to see all of the constellations and stars and galaxies that are visible to you where you're at that current time. One thing to note before you start using it is you might want to rotate this planisphere based on the orientation that you are facing. So if you're facing north, you'll have it flat on. If you're facing west, you might want to rotate it a little bit to the left. And then if you're facing south, for mine in particular, you'll have to flip it over, and this is your southern viewing window. One of the first things that I like to do when I go stargazing is I use the north side and I try to find the North Star, or Polaris, which is actually marked with the center grommet. Kind of an interesting side tangent, as you can probably tell by just rotating the disc, is that to us it looks like this Polaris, this star, stays stationary in the night sky and all of the other constellations actually rotate around this, which is not actually true. The universe doesn't rotate around this random star. It just looks like that from our perspective, and that's because the Earth is actually on an axis that's tilted, and if you follow that axis line, an imaginary line up from the North Pole up into space, that line is actually pointed pretty much almost directly at this star, the North Star, which is kind of why as we're standing on our planet as it rotates around the axis, it looks like that star is stationary while everything else rotates around it. But that's just a side tangent. You can also find other things in the sky such as different galaxies. Mine shows, globular star clusters versus open star clusters. Nebula is marked on here. There are a bunch of different lines, but the solid blue line on mine actually marks the celestial equator, which is just the projection of Earth's equator out onto the celestial sphere. And to note, this dashed blue line here is the ecliptic. So if you're looking to find any other planets, such as, I don't know, Mars or Jupiter, they can all be spotted along this ecliptic, as it is the plane of rotation of planets around the sun. So that's pretty much the basics of planispheres, how to use them, why they're great for beginners. Before I leave this off, I do have to touch on the limitations of the planisphere and how this representation is different than what you might actually see in the night sky. If you know anything about cartography and mapping, you'll know that when you take a 3D globe shape and you try to map it on a 2D planar map, you're going to get some distortion. And the same thing goes for the night sky. So a lot of the distortions are actually the same as normal geographical maps. For instance, there are two main ones that I know of in planispheres. The first one is curved horizontal and vertical lines, which just means that in the night sky there are things that are going to look, straight up and down or straight across that are actually going to be a little bit off on your planisphere. And the second one is the same reason why on a map Greenland looks giant than its actual size. And that's because around the edges, especially, you get a lot of stretching and pulling apart. So the constellations along the edge of your planisphere look really stretched out and far apart, versus in real life, when you look up into the night sky, they're going to look more condensed and just like how you would expect the look, versus the stretched out representation that you're getting from your planisphere. But even with these distortions, there's a lot that you can do and you can learn from planispheres, especially as a beginner astronomer like me, and it's still really easy to use. You get used to it really quick, and it gets you used to finding the constellations in the night sky in just general. But that's all I had for you today. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I hope to see you next week, and until then, happy star hunting.